Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm going to not use that microphone. I think you can hear me okay, right? Fantastic. All right. Well, thanks for coming. I'm Bryan Post, and I'm looking forward to spending the next 4 hours with you all. My mother's here. Excited about that, and my nephew. So looking forward to having them here today. You have this little worksheet. So there will be some things that we will go through today. And these are just some ways for you to take some notes so that you have that available. This afternoon we'll talk about the stress model and the 3 pathways. You'll have that. Then there's access to some resources as well. And then if you want to click on this QR code here, you can have access to one of my latest books, The Time In Solution, and then also the handouts for today. You can get them by clicking on that QR code, and it'll take you there. That way you don't have to worry about the handouts. You'll already have them. Good morning. I was just going over, you have a little worksheet. You can take some notes, and if you want to hit that QR code, you can get the handouts from today. It'll be accessible for you. All right, I'm going to back up to this slide here. So we'll do this. I'll change that around in the future. So our goal today is we want to create a paradigm shift. Adoptive parents? Adoptive parent? Professional? Yeah? Adoptive parent? Biological parents? We want to create a paradigm shift. And here's the thing. You came here to hear a presentation, which you always do. And usually those presentations, I want you to understand, are very cognitive. So it's just talking, because that's what we do. We do a lot of talking. And we do a lot of listening. And you write a lot of notes, which you don't ever go back and look at, which is fine. But what's going to make this presentation different, and the reason I'm doing this, and the reason I'm glad that you're here, is that you need to understand something about parenting, and you need to understand something about relationships. Parenting and relationships are not cognitive. You want to guess what they are? If they're not cognitive, we have 2 sides of our brains. We have a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere. So we have a cognitive brain, and we have a emotional brain. Guess what parenting is? Emotional. So if we're talking cognitively, but parenting is emotional, what happens when you go home with something cognitive? Doesn't work. It doesn't work. Because as soon as you become stressed, your thinking becomes confused and distorted. It comes from Joseph Ledoux, New York University neuroscientist. The moment you become stressed, your thinking becomes confused and distorted, and your short-term memory shuts off. So you go home to an emotional, and you should understand that stress is emotional. And so as soon as you become stressed, your stress takes over your thinking. So you go home to an emotional environment, you're already prone to stress. So your thinking's confused and distorted, your short-term memory shut down. If your short-term memory shuts down, guess what you forget about? Everything we talked about today goes right out the window. So here's how today's a little bit different. Because I understand that, because I've been teaching this for 25 years, we're going to have cognitive, but we're also going to have emotional. And then we're going to go back to cognitive. And that's how I'm going to help you integrate this material today. By giving you something cognitive, by giving you something emotional, and then taking it back to the cognitive. Then when you go home, you will see things differently. Now that is the beginning of a paradigm shift. A paradigm shift is the way you see the world. It's the way you think. It's the way you react or respond. It's a complete different way. It's a way you feel. It's a completely different way of looking at the world. This is a paradigm shift. What we're going to talk about today is a paradigm shift. Because it is different than what you have grown up hearing. It's different than how you were parented yourself. It's different than what goes on in schools. It's different than what is taught in the church. It's different. And what you're going to hear, because what's going to happen as you hear me going through these things, which is just 4 hours, so it's a very short day. 4 hours seems like a long time, but you're going to see that 4 hours is going to go zoop, and you're going to be like, golly. But what you're going to hear is that I'm going to be telling you these things, and what you're going to feel is you're going to feel this internal conflict, which is essential. You've got to feel conflict, because without conflict, then you just go along doing the same thing you've always done. So you've got to have conflict to come to some opportunity for different resolve. So you got to have the struggle. And that's what's going to happen, but I don't want you to get locked in the struggle, because you don't have to believe anything I tell you. I'm grateful for you. I'm glad you're here. I respect you. I honor you. I'm happy to have you. You don't have to believe anything that I'm telling you. So I don't want you to wrestle too much, because here's what you're going to find, is you're going to find that what I'm telling you has truth in it. And it is going to line up with everything that you thought, everything that you felt, maybe even at a level of what you've believed, but because no one else around you confirms it or affirms it or supports it, it's hard to continue doing. Because see, this goes against all that other old paradigm stuff. So that's going to be the challenge today, is to shift a paradigm. Shifting a paradigm is never easy. So we're going to do two things. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to set your intention for the day. This is very important. I'm going to jump across a couple slides here. I want you to set your intention for the day. We are a multi-dimensional being. It means we actually live in different dimensions. Sometimes you meet someone and you say, well, that's just kind of that person is what you see, what you get. You know, it's kind of one-dimensional. What you have to understand is that the first dimension is the past dimension. And that's how we're all programmed. We're all programmed from the past. So that is the first dimension of our lives. Now, that's unconscious. So if you never question, which you know people who never question anything and they just go through life, day after day after day, nothing changes. It's the same one day after the next. You don't question a single thing. Then you're just operating from the past. You're just operating from what has been told to you by the people who came before you, by your teachers, your pastors, your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents. You never question. You just go. That's living an unconscious life. And the majority of our society lives an unconscious life, because to question is a little bit scary. And the moment you start questioning, then now you're all of a sudden facing all of those adults in your life who said, don't question, just do what I tell you to do. Right? We all have that programming. Don't question me. I mean, you've all heard that. Don't question me, just do what I tell you to do. You might even tell that to your kids right now. You're questioning me, just do what I tell you to do. Well, that's how we were raised. So that's how we're conditioned. We're conditioned to not question. So when you don't question, you just internalize these blueprints and then you just live them. You just live them. Well, see, there's a second dimension. The second dimension is the present dimension. That's where we're at right now. So when you stop thinking about the past or reacting from the past, when you move out of that unconsciousness, you're just conscious. You're just right here today. I show up. I got a situation with my kid. You know, I want to learn something. Maybe this will be interesting. Here you are. You're in the present. The present is very important. The present is so important because it's the only thing that actually exists. See, this present moment is all that exists. You think the past life you lived exists because you lived it, and you think that the future exists, going home, like it actually exists. Like there's a car out there, and I got a kid, I got a husband, I got food, and all this stuff that's going to be going on. That's all future. That's not present. The only thing that actually exists is this very moment. This very moment. Because guess what? I could have a heart attack and die. And all that other stuff will never come to fruition. Because my life could end right now. So the present is the only thing that exists, and that's the second dimension. The third dimension is the future. The future. Now, here's one thing I like to say. Stress causes us to react from the past, obsess about the future, but it takes us out of the present. So stress causes us to react from the past. When you get stressed, you're reacting from the past, you're obsessing about the future. How many of you as parents have said, if it's bad now, what's it going to be like when he's an adult? Even though he's 5. Right? Oh my God, I have got to make a difference or this is going to be bad. Deepak Chopra says you cannot prevent the future from happening. You cannot prevent the future from happening, but you can influence the future from the present. You can't prevent it because it's going to happen, but what you can do is influence it. Now, before I go into that any further, talking about the future, which doesn't exist, beyond the future is the fourth dimension, and that's the dimension of creativity. That's the dimension where you can paint anything that you want. You can paint any picture that you want. And then if you focus from the present, if you focus on that fourth dimension, you can pull that fourth dimension into your present, which pulls it into your future. So in the fourth dimension, you can paint anything you want. So all of you have an intention for your lives, for your children, your hopes, your dreams. So I want you to take a moment, because this is very important. I want you to close your eyes. Take some deep breaths. Open your eyes for just a minute. Let me tell you something. Bruce Perry is been a mentor of mine for 25 years. He's a neuroscientist and a psychiatrist, and he says that anytime you encounter a novel event, the brain perceives it as a threat until deemed otherwise. Anytime you encounter anything new, your brain perceives it as a threat until it realizes that it's not. An oppositional defiant child is a scared child. Not an aggressive child, not a child who's ignoring you, not a disobedient child. Because when you ask the child to do something, because the brain perceives any new event as a threat, as soon as you ask the child to do something, they freeze. We misperceive the freeze as disobedience. But it's not disobedience, it's fear. The brain freezes. The brain freezes, then it determines whether it's going to fight or whether it's going to flee. Now, why did I just tell you that? Number one, because it can change your life. It can change your life when you begin the process. Number two, when I ask you to close your eyes, you're not going to want to close your eyes because your brain perceives closing your eyes as a threat. Everyone's going to be okay. No one's going to die. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to steal your purse. We're going to be all right. So get here with me in the present for a moment. Get here with me in the present. Close your eyes. Inhale through your nose, exhale out of your mouth. Breathing is a very important part of what we're going to do today. Now, just give all those racing thoughts a moment. And then I want you to see a blackboard, like a chalkboard, an old school chalkboard, like when you were in grade school. Just keep breathing. Now I'm going to ask you this question. What is your intent for today? And your intent today ties into your intent for the future. What do you want to see happen in your life as the catalyst that brought you here today? If anything could happen in this day today to create that in the future, what would that be? What do you want that to be? What is your intent? Because that's your intent. What do you want? If you're a parent, I'm going to help you as parents. If you're a parent, go out there in the fourth dimension and see your relationship with your child right now. What does that feel like? What does that look like? If you're married, what is that? Go out in that fourth dimension on that chalkboard, and paint that picture for your marriage and for your relationship. In your home, what does your home look like? What does it feel like? See, that's the second big question. What does it feel like? Paint the picture, set the intention, and what does it feel like? Just paint it on the chalkboard. Paint it on the chalkboard. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to spend the time doing that. So your brain tells you that you need to get busy doing something. And what I'm going to tell you is that doing that is the most important thing you can do. You can open your eyes. Go ahead and open your eyes for a moment. Keep breathing. And I'm going to repeat what I just said. Your brain tells you that you need to get busy doing something or get busy learning something. That's what your brain tells you. But what I'm going to tell you is that painting that vision, that intention, is the most important thing you can do. The reason it's the most important thing you can do is because you can't prevent the future from happening, but you can influence the future from the present. So I believe that there are only two primary emotions, love and fear. Those are our only two primary emotions. You got all kinds of feelings, but they all arise from love or from fear. Now, what's happening in your present, which is reflected from your past, right now is that there's a lot of stress in your home. There's a lot of stress in your relationship. There's a lot of tension. And so you came here to find some of those answers. But what I want you to do is I don't want you to focus on that. I want you to focus on what you want. What do you want? Last week I was in Fort Worth and I had my audience do the same thing, paint the intention. And then I said, what's the feeling? What's the feeling of the intention? What's the feeling? If you go into your intention, what's that feeling? Joy. It feels joyful. How about for you, sister? Peaceful. How about for you, Dad? Peaceful. How about for you, Mom? Huh? Loved. Feels loved. So I had a mom last week paint the intention, and I said, what does it feel like? And she said, fear. Oh, wow. Your intention of what you want to create, which you know is joy and happiness and love and laughter and peace, you can't get to the intention because you got fear standing in the way. There's too much fear standing in the way. So we got to be able to get out of the fear to be able to get to the intention. If you can't do that at the most basic level, you're going to be in trouble. Because what I want you to be able to do, and this is going to sound so contradictory, is when you're stressed, I want you to stress less and focus more on your intention. I want you to stress less and focus more on your intention. And here's why. Here's why. Einstein says everything that exists is a vibration. Everything is a vibration. And if you match the frequency of what you want, it has to become that way. Because all vibration creates a frequency. You can't hear it, but it's there. And I like to think of a radio station. Remember when we were kids, we had radio stations with knobs? And to get to one radio station to another radio station, what'd you have to go through? Static. Right? How often did you get to the static and then turn up the volume? No, you didn't want to hear the static. The static didn't feel good. What felt good was the clear channel. The clear channel felt good. You didn't want to spend time in the static. You know what stress is? You know what fear is? Static. Stress and fear is a static. So we get stuck in the static. And then that's what happens in the present is we get stuck in the static, and then guess what we see in the future? Static. So the frequency is actually the intention. So you think about the intention, the frequency is the feeling associated with the intention. I'll say that again. The frequency is the feeling associated with the intention. So in the present, when you're getting really stressed out and you're in static, your whole family is now in static, because that's what we do is we match vibrations. We match vibrations. So whatever you're feeling is magnified by everyone around you. That's very simple. That's why I stopped diagnosing kids 20 years ago. I stopped diagnosing kids 20 years ago because I would see, I think probably the breaking point was when I had a 5-year-old kid who already had 3 diagnoses and 5 medications. And I knew her parents were a hot mess. And so then I realized that if a child is operating at a level of stress, and see, this is what you're going to learn today that most people don't ever tell you, is that a diagnosis is a byproduct of a stressed out individual. You don't get to a diagnosis without a stressed out person. It's called dysregulation. In fact, dysregulation is the fundamental cause of all psychiatric disorders. So when you have a diagnosis, you have a stressed out person. Well, the significance of that is that if you've got a stressed out person in your home who has a diagnosis, guess what that means for stress in the rest of the home? Everyone else is experiencing it. And if everyone else is experiencing the stress in the home, guess what everyone else could probably have? A diagnosis. So I stopped diagnosing children because if a child has to have a diagnosis, everyone needs a diagnosis. Because if I give your child a diagnosis, guess who you point the finger at? Your child. If I give your child medication, guess who you point the finger at? The child. Guess who's no longer taking any responsibility? Us as adults. As adults, not even as parents. As adults, and that's actually the first time I ever said that. Instead of saying us as parents, because guess what happens when I say, guess who doesn't take responsibility? Us parents. Guess what the first thing is you feel? You feel like some blame, some shame. But what if I just say, us as adults? Then all of a sudden, that kind of just makes sense, doesn't it? Doesn't it just make sense that the adults are supposed to teach the kids? Doesn't it? So in order for an adult to teach a kid how to be less stressed, what does the adult have to be able to do? Be less stressed. Is that rocket science? No, it's like common sense. But you know what happens to common sense? When we're stressed, it goes right out the window. But I'm going to show you that today. So Einstein says, match the frequency of what you want, and it has to become that. Now, he was a pretty smart guy, wasn't he? Match the frequency of what you want, and it has to become that. Well, in order to match the frequency, first of all, you got to set the intent. And then you got to get into what the feeling of that is. Like my nephew yesterday, he said he was applying for a job at a game place. He wants to, because he loves gaming, and he wants to work at it. I mean, that's like freaking heaven. That's like freaking heaven. So that's his intent. That's his intent. He's painting that intention. And that intention has a feeling. It has a feeling. So then here's the challenge. The challenge is that he applies to one place and they say, well, we're not hiring right now. Oh. And then he applies to another place and they say, we're not hiring. Oh. And he applies to another place and they're not. Oh. And guess what feeling he's in? Guess what frequency he's in? He's in a frequency opposite his intention. So the challenge is, we're not hiring right now. Okay, great. I'm ready for the place that is hiring because that's my frequency. That's where I want to. That's the challenge. And that is so hard. It is so hard to stay in that elevated frequency of the intention that you want. And give you a perfect example. A perfect example for me is I have an intention that this room will be 500 people. 500. So when I have 10 or 8 or 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, including the camera guy, I could go, oh, well, guys, there's only 10 of us. You know what? Why don't you guys just save your time? And sorry we didn't have a bigger turnout. And I'll see you some other time. But I don't do that. I don't care if there was just one of you. Whether there's just one of you, I'm going to give you the same message that I have been on fire about for 25 years that I know changes lives. If there was one of you, we're going to sit and we're going to have a breakthrough in your life today, because that's what I'm here for. Now, let me tell you how crazy I am. I might even do it if there was nobody in here. If I took the time to get here, I might even do it with 0, especially if I got my camera guy. So that's kind of where I operate now. Tomorrow we got 50 people in the room. 50 people in the room. Are they going to get anything more than what you're going to get today? Absolutely not. When there's 500 people in the room, are they going to get anything more than what you're going to get today? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. In fact, they're going to get a little less. Because today, you have an opportunity to ask me questions and for us to work through some things for you in your home that you wouldn't get if it was a room of 500 people. So be shy if you want to and miss the opportunity, because I'm going to give you everything I can give you until it's time to end today. So that's my intention, and that's what we're always challenged with. So you've got to set the intention. So when I say set the intention, I really mean it. And not only do I mean it, but let me show you something. Bruce Lee says one of the best lessons you can learn in life is to master how to remain calm. Now, I've been working with challenging families and kids for 25 years all around the world. I've written 18 books. I've sold over 1 million copies of one of those books. So I've been doing this a long time. I was born into doing this. And so I have a bachelor's degree, I have a master's degree, I have a PhD. I don't use any of that. I'm just Bryan Post, as that's all that matters to me. In all the time that I've been doing this work, I have an agency in Northern California right now with 100 employees, and all we do is work with at-risk adoptive families. That's all we do out there. Every day. So I've been doing this almost every day for the last 25 years. And in all of that time, I'm going to tell you the most powerful thing that there is, that if you grasp this, you don't need anything else. And it's going to seem too simple. But it's this. In times of stress, learn to breathe. In times of stress, learn to breathe. And that is the most contradicting thing that exists in our society right now. Because when you become stressed, our brains do the exact opposite. When you become stressed, the first thing you do is you start holding your breath. And when you start holding your breath, your cortisol increases. Your cortisol is your brain's primary stress hormone. So as your cortisol starts increasing, then what it does is it overwhelms your hippocampus. So all of a sudden now your thinking is confused and distorted because your hippocampus has to communicate to your front brain. This is for adults. Imagine how challenging for children.